What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, for the fly I'm going to tie is going to be a parachute style fly. And these were pretty tricky for me for a while because I can't hold on to the parachute and wrap around it. So I have a little trick that I do. But this one is going to be a HI-viz midge, and for video purposes I'm tying it on a size 10. But I would go down 14, 18, 12, probably be the biggest I'd want to. But just for the video, I'm going to do a size 10. Thread I'm using is uni thread, 130 or 6/0 and black. So let's get this started. I'm using a TMC 2487 emerger hook. And this was the first parachute fly I tied so I could learn how to do it, because it's really only a few materials. So it's a really easy fly. It's just the parachute is something that really fights me. So if you don't have hand function, or even if you do, you can use this little trick I'm going to do for the parachute. So I'm going to come up maybe 3 eye lengths behind the eye of the hook. I got some orange poly yarn here. I'm going to tie this in first. I like using a longer section like this just because it makes it easier for me to grab onto and manipulate into position where I want it, to where I can tie it down really good. Get the rest of that and trim it out. So if you watched my videos for a while, you notice that when it comes to some things, I use a bit longer material, and that's just to help me grip it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap down all these butts and try to make that look all neat. And that gives it a bit of a taper. I'm going to come back up front. And that's about where I want my parachute. So take it and try to fold it back and jam up a bunch of thread wraps right in front of it to get it to stand up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few posting wraps just to start it. And usually starting at the base like this is not the problem. It's once I get up a little bit like that is where I start having the problems. But I have it started, so I'm going to leave that for now. And I'm going to return my thread about halfway. I'm going to come back up. So I want to get some taper going here. but you can also taper it with the dubbing. But adding a little taper doesn't hurt. I'll come about to right there. And the next material I'm going to tie in is a piece of silver wire, silver ultra wire. It doesn't have to be a really big piece here. Only doing a few wraps for the rib. But lay that on the side of the fly and then wrap all the way down. And like I said, this is one of the easier parachute flies I have tied, just because you don't use a whole lot of material. I've tied quill body clink hammers that are pretty tricky to do. Alright. With that being done, I'm going to go ahead and dub the body. So like usual, I use a little bit of dubbing wax. And the dubbing I'm using is rabbit and black. You can feel free to use a synthetic. I want to say I've tied these with super fine, and it worked out pretty good too. Natural is just a little bit easier for me to dub. Alright, let's dub this up. And if you're new to the channel, how I dub the dubbing is I just get it onto the flat parts of my hand here and I just spin, and that really seems to give me the best results. Gonna wrap to where the dubbing starts right at the bottom, and then just touching wraps all the way up. Ideally, you want to be out of dubbing a little bit behind the parachute there. I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to jump it right there and take a few wraps, because I'm going to use the rotary function on my vise for the wire. So get it with your Hackle pliers. And just do open spiral wraps. And we're going to tie this off right behind our parachute there. I try to get a good few wraps on it. Sometimes I can do it, and I'm going to see if I can this time. Instead of having to use wire cutters, I try to grip it a little further up with my hackle pliers. And it usually takes a little bit, but I try to helicopter the wire off. There we go. Just like that. Gives you a neater tie down spot or break, instead of having to use wire cutters and then you always have a tag. Alright, so for the trick for the parachute, I have it started there. And the easiest way for me to be able to post it the rest of the way up and put the hackle on is a little bit of Solar bone dry. So I get the base of it really good, and then I put some to about where I want to post it. Letting it soak into the base is kind of the most important, just because you want it to be stiff. And like I said, I can't hold on to the post to be able to post it, so it makes it difficult to do parachute flies. This is the most effective way that I have found to do parachute flies. Now we'll cure this with our light. And I have fished these. I don't see any difference in fishing them when you put a little bit of Solar there. I don't think it adds to the weight at all. And I've seen other people to where they do their parachutes where they move the hook to where the parachute's vertical. I can't really do that with the weight of the bobbin on there. I can turn it sideways, but I can't take the fly out of the vise and put it back in with the weight of the bobbin on there, because it'll just slip out of my hands. So I want to post this up pretty good, about right there. Work it back down. And you see it gives me a nice little parachute, nice little post. And another thing that's tricky for these for me is I don't know if I'm making the post tall enough for the fly itself. I like to think I am, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to take my hackle here. Once I get the hackle on, I can usually make the post a little taller. Just like that. And we'll cut the stem out of here. And I like just to clean this section up a little bit before I put my dubbing on. As you can see, we got a decent little post there that really shows up that good. But now I'm going to do the thorax. So a little more dubbing wax. It's about time to push a little more of this out. And back with our dubbing. And I haven't tied dry flies in a while, so this is, well, I guess I did that stimulator, but I haven't done a parachute fly in a while. But we're going to build up a nice little plump thorax on this. Let's see if that's enough. If not, then I'll get some more. Especially on this part, it is much easier to go back and get more than it is to try to take some off. So just like that. Tighten my thread there. And I'm going to leave my thread right there. So I'm going to try to tie it off on the post, but I'm going to try to tie the fly off behind the eye of the hook if I can. Doesn't usually work out for me, but I'm going to try it. So same thing with wrapping the hackle. I get the tip of it with my hackle pliers. And it can be kind of difficult because you want the hackle always wants to kind of stand up like that. So try to get it to where you can start wrapping it. And I try to do touching wraps here. Can be a bit difficult. So needless to say, my parachutes are never really pretty, but it's okay. I'm not too concerned about it because I'm just fooling a fish. And I enjoy tying them, so I don't care if they don't look super clean and perfect. So tying off to the post like that can be rather tricky. Just because it's kind of hard to see. And then you're gonna trap hackle fibers, which is fine. But as you can see, my parachutes are not pretty at all. But like I said, I'm okay with it. They seem to fish good. Go ahead and cut that out. Any fibers you got sticking down, you can cut out. Now I got a lot of stuff in front of, or right above the eye of the hook. If I can grab my tool here. I like using my half hitch tool just to make sure that I don't crowd the eye, and I'm still able to get tippet in it. I think that would be good. And just like that. Go ahead and cut your thread out. Now the parachute again, for me, is a little tricky to cut, just trying to figure out how tall to do it. I try to eyeball it about a hook's gap. And if anything, it'll be used for bluegill, because I don't mind fishing a dry fly for brim as long as I'm catching a fish. But there you go. That is the Parachute HI-viz midge. Like I said, my parachute is not pretty, if you can see that at all. You can get in here and kind of push your parachute around to make it look better. This one is probably one of the better ones I've done, if you can see that. But like I said, this is a fairly easy fly to practice your parachutes. One day I hope that I can get a better method of tying them, because they are fun to tie and they're fun to fish. I like tying them. I like to have a good couple on my box, depending on what I'm fishing for. But that's gonna be it. Pretty simple tie, not a whole lot to it. Little bit of solar like I said, really helps. When you do tie off, I just did a half hitch, make sure you put some head cement on your thread wraps and on the post where you tied the hackle off. Make your fly more durable. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. I try to do a video every Monday. I have some footage on my GoPro from my last fishing trip I plan to upload. No fish were caught, but turned into a decent boat ride. But until next time, I will see y'all later.